Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are watching this. Welcome back to another episode of the Since I Was Young podcast. We are a Heart of Midlothian podcast for all news, chat, and debates. Joining you, as always, is myself, Ewan, and Alan. Alan, I have to ask you a very serious question, mate. As I told you, I got my the vaccine just this week there. Are one of the side effects being delusional as fuck? Because I'm pretty sure I saw on Saturday that Hearts won away from home, and that's 2 games on the bounce. Did that actually happen?
Yeah, I've heard that's a thing. I've heard that's
Jesus.
a thing. Not bad. I mean, it's one of those, just before we jump in and have a proper conversation, it's nice to have the 2010 lifted and forgotten about.
I didn't even know that. I seriously didn't even know that until you told me. Like a shitey wee town like is that? Fuck me up the arse.
It's mental.
Oh, mate. But anyhow, as Alan just said, to point out there, that's going to be our main talking point for this episode. We're going to do a bit of a review on the game that was held in Love Street or whatever that fucking stadium is called. I have no idea, but quite frankly, I don't honestly care. We're going to do a bit of a review from the game at the weekend where Hearts were victorious against St Mirren with a 2-1 victory. So we'll go into a bit of depth about the game. Obviously, as always, we'll have our news segment with yours truly, Alan. We're going to have a bit of updates on a potential out at the goings and plus a very strong incoming transfer as well. To round things off, we'll have a wee look ahead to next weekend's game in the last 16 of the League Cup, which will be away to Celtic, obviously at Parkhead. So we'll round things off with that. But as always, guys, if you are a Hearts fan, please think about subscribing. You guys have been absolutely smashing it for the last 2 weeks. I think it's about maybe 20 odd subs in the space of a few weeks, which might not seem a lot, but for us, it's a party. So thank you all for subscribing, and also a wee thank you as well to the This Is My Story podcast as well for sharing the last episode as well. Again, that was a massive factor for us getting a few subs on the go. So to all the boys there, thank you very much, and it was greatly appreciated. So as always, we're going to get into our news segment. So Alan, what have you got for us, buddy?
Right. So in terms of, you mentioned there some potential outgoings. Jordan Roberts has been told that he's free to leave the club if he can find a new place to go. Apparently some interest from a couple of clubs down south. He played there before, so it makes sense for him to maybe go back there again. It's a deal that just didn't work. He was one of the players that was brought in for the championship season, and he didn't even make an impact at that level. So it's frustrating because he was on a 2-year deal. So, we're going to end up probably not getting any money for him. So it'll just be a case of rip the contract up and send him back down, which is a shame because before he came up, it had all the makings of actually not a bad deal, to be honest. But yeah, it's just the way it's worked. And wherever he ends up, we wish him all the best, I'm sure.
Of course, yeah, absolutely, man.
And the second player this week that also got told that he can leave and is free to find a new club is Popescu. Now, I never really got Popescu, to be honest. He played a lot in the championship, but he didn't sit right for me as a Hearts type of defender. I don't know what it is about him. There was always a little error in his game, and I think the way that Robbie wants his defence to be, and we've seen it so far this season, he wants them to be organised, he wants them to be tight, and he wants them to be, strong. And all of those things are not Popescu. So I think, to be honest, I think he'll stay in Scotland, though. I don't think he'll go abroad or down south, because I think there'll probably be clubs in Scotland that will be looking for defenders. Probably get a game for Dundee. They got humped today, so that might be good. Nice. But yeah, another one that will have probably been on a fairly reasonable wage, but one that we can move out the way, and hopefully that frees up not only a squad space but wages for new players, because I have a feeling we're going to be quite busy in the next couple of weeks, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, that was going to be like sort of a wee question for you, mate, because surely, like, with the sort of the departure of these two players, possibly, that's got to kind of point to, like, we must be, like, kind of sort of close-ish to bringing in sort of the people in those the roles, like, and two roles that I think are quite sort of important for, like, for us as a full squad, like, because obviously we would probably feel a bit better if we got specifically a central defender who's probably, like, who's probably a bit more capable than Halkett, but doesn't have to be as good as Suter. I think, like, that sort of happy medium, I think, would be a bit more sort of sensible. And obviously, like, whether it be sort of an out and out striker, or if Robbie intends to bring in sort of the winger, like, as well, because Lord knows he loves a winger. So yeah, like, would you feel as if that would be sort of imminent for us to kind of expect those roles to come in? Or
I think so. I think I'll speak about them after, a little bit after, once I've done the news. But the new the incoming that's pretty much done, we're just waiting on paperwork, is the Cameron Devlin midfielder. So to me, that leaves us the midfield kind of sorted. I know somebody said it was either McFadden or Michael Stewart, I can't mind which pundit it was. It was one of the two of them, and they said that we're missing a bit of creativity in the middle of the park, and I do agree with that. But equally, I don't think Robbie's midfield is kind of built that way. We can see it from Benny and Haring, and even Halliday, I'll put in that bracket as well. They are capable of a forward pass. It's not really their all-round game. They're more sort of hard workers, but they can look up and play a pass. Benny did it a couple of times against St Mirren, as did Haring. So yeah, and then you've got McKenniff as well. I think we tend to forget about him because he's a wee bit further down the order, and Finlay Pollock as well, another one. So I do think with Cameron Devlin coming in, it could be that's probably the midfield options done, I would say. But no, I think a winger, a striker, and a centre back would be good. If we can only get one of a winger or a striker, it's funny, I was talking to someone the other day about this, and the perfect person that I think we could use right now would be a Connor Washington type of forward.
Yeah. No,
he covered the wide areas and the forward line, and he had a bit of pace about him. He wasn't fantastic, don't get me wrong, but I think we'll probably get maybe 2 or 3 more in between now and the end of the window. I think a centre back and maybe a winger and a striker would be nice.
I like to think so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think what we've seen with the deals he's done so far, with particularly probably the Beningame and also the Devlin deals, they seem to have been deals that have been worked on for a while. So, it wouldn't surprise me if he already knows who he's going to go for and who they're getting, rather than panicking and bringing in anybody, which is a nice change of pace, considering how we've done our business in the past.
Of course, Alan, of course. Well, that's actually quite a nice wee segue there, as you've just mentioned them. So for all the people that don't know who this man is, like, in good to me, do you want to tell us a tiny wee bit more about this incoming midfielder from Australia?
I was waiting on the accent getting pulled out. I'm not even going to try it. Like, I'm not I'm not going to insult people with my terrible accent.
I know. Like,
yours was
Australian.
One more.
Good eye.
That's a couple more words than me, mate. But essentially the deal is done in principle for Cameron Devlin. Now, I reached out to someone on Twitter by the name of @Scout_Aussie, who was incredibly helpful with his information and his insight on the player. Brief little bit of background. He signed for the Wellington Phoenix in 2019 and made around 50 appearances over 2 seasons. Initially went in as a squad player, then found his way into the first team thanks to injuries to players that were ahead of him. And he went in and just made the position his own and really kind of started, really asserting himself in the squad, which is nice. And he's only 23 years of age as well. So, relatively young profile as well.
Mm-hmm.
This is when it gets a bit strange. He signed for the Newcastle Jets in June of this year.
Okay.
So a couple of months ago.
Oh, right? Oh, right. This year.
Yes.
Fucking hell. Right. Yes. Okay. Fair
enough. June 2001. Okay.
Fair it is. Wait. No. June 2021. No. 2000.
2001.
To say about how fucking old is he? You said he was young. Fuck.
Sorry. June 2021. That just shows you, because 2001 doesn't feel like that long ago. But bloody hell,
no,
20
it doesn't.
Years. Anyway, yeah. So June 2021, signed for Newcastle Jets, and apparently this is when he came onto the Hearts' radar, because it was noted that he has a release clause in his contract. So it was obviously a signing that Newcastle Jets made in order to flip him for some money, which seems like good business for them.
Fair enough.
I don't think he's played for them yet. I don't think he's kicked a ball for them yet. I could be wrong on that. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think he's kicked the ball for them yet. But yeah, he's Hearts basically found out about this release clause. Apparently, it's a 5-figure fee that we've paid for him, or at least released him from the clause, from the contract rather. And from what the person on Twitter that I spoke to, Scout_Aussie, pointed out, was that he sees, this Cameron Devlin, he was part of the Australian Olympic squad with the Tokyo Olympics that just finished yesterday, I think it was, at this point. And apparently it's one of those, he's hoping that a move to Europe can push him into the sort of Australian proper international squad, because Olympic squads are, I think you're only allowed to be 23 and under. It could be 24 and under. I'm not 100%, but it's not the proper squad, if you know what I mean. So I think it's a case of get a move to Europe, and obviously in this case Hearts, and try and get himself involved in the proper international stage for Australia, which would be good, to be fair. In terms of the player himself, I know you said that you've never heard of him before. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be an expert. I had no idea who he was 2 weeks ago. So all of the things I'm about to tell you have come from somebody else, not me. But
better not be a fucking lie, honestly.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Nah, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding.
So yeah, massive shout outs, in fact, to Scout_Aussie for his contribution. I'm sure he had a lot of Hearts fans badgering him when he mentioned the player's name, because obviously none of us have got a clue who he is. But essentially, he told me that Cammy Devlin plays more as a sort of number 6, like a defensive midfielder option. Which I then replied and said, well, funny that, we've just signed a new number 6. So that's an interesting one. But apparently he's more sort of sits deep and breaks the play up from the back, and not much of a forward mover. Won't break lines when he's running, but can find a pass when he looks up. So maybe similar in profile to what Benny's doing, which would make sense if that's the sort of player we're looking for. He also noted that the Wellington Phoenix was the team that obviously he was at previously. They were very much a possession-based team.
Oh, and, Craig Levine would have been creaming in his pants as soon as he found out about that.
So apparently Cammy Devlin is one of those players that regularly during matches he'd have more than 100 touches of the ball. And sort of dictate the play and lead the team from that side, and apparently quite a good leader as well. So it's all positive signs in that front. I'd be interested to see how he fits into our midfield, to be honest. But time will tell on that one. In terms of his disciplinary record, because Scottish football, we know the referees love a red card, love a yellow card.
Indeed.
card-happy refs in this country. So I was asking again about his disciplinary record, and he had 14 yellow cards in 34 starts for Wellington Phoenix, which
that's what I like.
Shows he likes. Yeah, shows he likes a tackle. Put it that way.
Getting about
but
it.
On the positive side of that, he's never been sent off. And
fair enough.
According to the information I was given, a lot of his fouls are intelligent ones where he'll be breaking up a counter attack or stopping a promising move from the opposition and just getting himself in a position to stop it essentially, which is good. Again, that's kind of Peter Haring / Benny kind of territory as well. They did it a couple of times against St Mirren, actually, to be fair. One of the more promising things that I heard, and I actually really like this, is that he apparently has a very high footballing IQ in terms of his intelligence on the pitch, which is good.
Okay, fair enough.
The Australian technical director, Trevor Morgan, described him as one of the smartest young footballers in Australia. So,
fair enough, man.
If it's sounding, all the signs are sounding promising, to be honest. And then just to round it up in terms of the player profile, I asked him in terms of a European-based player that we would know of that has a similar kind of skill set, similar traits to Devlin. And not to get anybody's hopes up or anything, but the response I got was Kante in his defensive abilities and stature.
Wrap up the league now. It's fucking done. Fucking stay at home, lockdown, scrap the league. Neil Doncaster, fucking pig, fucking daddy, whatever his name is, just fucking wrap up now. It's done.
Just give us the trophy now. Just give us the trophy now, lads.
Save the embarrassment. Save your money and all. Just fucking do it.
In seriousness, though, obviously it's a loose comparison with Kante. He did say in terms of his stature and his defensive capabilities, but obviously in terms of in possession, they're night and day. Of course, one's a Champions League winner and one's a 23-year-old that's playing in Australia. So, but yeah, I mean that wraps up pretty much the information I was given on the player. Again, as I say, it sounds promising. Sounds like another little coup that we've maybe managed to get ourselves. Just to wrap up before the next piece of news comes through for you, Robbie Nelson said when he was asked about him that this is a player that was identified by the statistical scouting recruitment team. So
nice.
This is obviously a sign of this new school of scouting have identified this player. They brought him to manager's attention, to Joe Savage's attention. They then watched footage of him and were obviously impressed and encouraged to make the offer. And, a 5-figure sum's not all bad. So he is currently awaiting visas and paperwork to be able to come over. I'm not sure in terms of like quarantine, etc. When he'll get here, that might not be a thing anymore by the time he gets here. Who knows? He might not have to do it with the way the world's going and the way things are changing every day. But yeah, it's for a player that no one's ever heard of before. It could be a very interesting one. But then we've had a history of players coming in from Australia and Australian players that have done all right for themselves.
Definitely.
So, yeah, and I think as well, I like the point that he said about getting a move to Europe to then better himself and improve his game and get him into the Australian squad. I mean, that's massive for Hearts. I had this conversation with this Twitter user at Aussie_Scout again, and it's nice to see, and I'm happy for players to want to use Hearts as a stepping stone to bigger clubs. Like, that doesn't bother me, because obviously, I mean, we want players to stay and we want to have continued success with them. But if we're paying 5 figures for this boy from Australia, if he comes in and absolutely smashes it, there's money to be made there, and that's how we have to operate. And I think the same could probably be said with Benny as well. I think that's similar. So yeah, it could certainly be one to watch. But the deal is done. I don't know length of contract or anything. The club haven't obviously announced anything because it's not official yet. But the deal's done. Just waiting the visas to come through, and we'll take it from there.
Sounds good, my man. Well, thank you very much for that in-depth player profile as well. So if you hadn't heard of him, you have now. So, as always, Alan, thank you very much for the news segment as always. So we'll move swiftly into the game that was held on Saturday. If you're watching this, we are recording this on a Sunday, so it'll be Monday by the time you watch this. So a few days ago. So yeah, went up to Ed Paisley and 1-1, which was I was surprised at it, but again, I kind of wasn't at the same time. I was expecting a statue win, but in the back of my mind, I was almost like, if we lose, it'll just be sort of expected, like, oh, here we go again. But no, obviously we'll go into a bit of the context about it. But in a nutshell, for me, like, it was very, very, very similar to last week's game against Celtic, where we played absolutely fantastic for the first 20 minutes, and then for the rest of the game we were a bit shite. Obviously, we'll go into depth about it just now. So yeah, like I said, I thought we started off again quite the brightly. Again, sort of good, up pace tempo for it. The game kept to the same 3-4-3, again, which I was relatively happy about. Obviously we didn't find out until the actual day, but my predicted goal scorer Kingsley, it was fucking out, so I was raging about that to start with. But Robbie moved the Cochrane from the left, sort of the wing back, into the central defence, which I thought he actually did all right. Then he moved Andy Halliday into sort of back into the left wing, which we know he can actually do an all right wee job there. Started Haring's first start for the season, alongside the Baron Degemi, and I think it was relatively the same after that as well, with the team as such. And my boy, what a fucking goal! Fucking Andy Halliday, son. You show those doubters what you're fucking made of, son. But yeah, just to touch on the goal, I thought it was quite a nice sort of the build-ups, the play as well.
Definitely.
And obviously beforehand as well, we the boys had a half chance as well with another pinpoint accurate fucking ball from Smith as well. Like, that boy knows how to pick them out, mate, honestly. So yeah, what did you? Well, I will ask you what you thought of everything I've just said there beforehand. But in terms of the goal, was it not one of the most beautiful finishes you've ever seen in your life? Seriously? Oh,
do you know what?
Pinpoint.
I knew this was coming. As soon as Andy Halliday scored that goal, right? If I had my phone in my hand, I would read out the message that I got from yourself. Now,
Kimmy, I'll do it just before you carry on, mate. I'll do it for you. Let's see.
Just to put this into context, I was sitting at work watching this, and my stream was slightly behind. Slightly, not a great deal, but slightly. I had a bit of a frantic look to try and find a stream before kickoff, because anything to avoid giving St Mirren £12 of my own money. Thank you very much. But yeah, I mean, I'll just reel off what I thought of things while you look for that message that I sent you, or you sent me rather.
I've actually got it here, mate, so I can get it out the way. So as soon as you sent me that, that's when we scored, and my exact words were, "Andy fucking Halliday, my fucking boy," and then you just said it back with one ha ha ha. Like, the most unsarcastic ha ha ha.
What did you want me to say? I mean,
totally agree. He's proved everyone wrong, hands down.
You're the founding
unbelievable talent
member. You're the founding member of the Andy Halliday fan club, mate. I can't take that away from you.
And I will probably be the only member of the Andy Halliday fan club, mate. So,
No,
but
to be
I'll be
fair,
happy with that.
to be fair, he actually put in a good performance against St Mirren. It was one of his better games. Didn't really put much of a foot wrong, but no. Going back to what I was saying, you said about the lineup before I talk about the goal. You said about the lineup. I was happy to see that he stuck with the same system and roughly the same players. I think if Kingsley had been well, he would have been playing and it would have been the exact same 11 because that was the only change that was made to the squad. Sorry. So it was interesting, and then I saw Alex Cochrane playing in centre, like the left side of the centre, the left side of the three. I was a little bit concerned about that before kickoff because Curtis Main, the St Mirren striker, is an absolute unit. Not a very good technical football player, but an absolute unit nonetheless. But to be fair, Alex Cochrane did well against them, I have to say. He did. He pleasantly surprised me with that. But in terms of the start of the game, I thought we did very well. I was interested to see how it was going to go because St Mirren played a 3-4-3 as well. So, you know,
do you think that they played that for their sort of the benefit because they knew that we did played that before, or do you think it was just sort of like that's how they play? Or
well, they've seemingly played it before. I don't know, to tell you the truth, because St Mirren were not a team that I was in any way interested in last season or ever have been, in fact. Ever. So but it was interesting to see how it was going to work. Our 3-4-3 against theirs. The first 10-15 minutes we did very well with the ball, passed it around, moved it well, found the space, but we were patient with it, and that's what I liked. I said it last episode when we were doing our sort of look ahead to the game that I was intrigued to see how we were on the ball, because obviously against Celtic we didn't have possession, and I was impressed. I was impressed with the way we moved the ball about for the first half of the first half, and then obviously the goal, like you say, the goal came from that. Boyce passes it back to him, and Andy Halliday barely has any time to think about it. And I often find, not even just Andy Halliday, but I find players, when they don't have time to think about what they're going to do, it almost 9 times out of 10, it comes off for them. Yeah. And I think that did, because all Andy Halliday did there, and I'm going to totally simplify it was a fantastic finish, don't get me wrong, and I'll give him massive, massive credit for being there to hit it. But all he did is wrap his foot around it because that's all he had the time to do. And the goalkeeper was never saving it anyway. Right in the corner, brilliant finish. I think Halliday said after the game something along the lines of he was disappointed with his goal return last season and he wants to try and score more goals this season, which you can never have too many midfielders that want to score goals. Let's be honest.
Oh no, Alan, because I think, because he said, well, to put it into the context, I think, he set himself at the personal target where he wants to try and get into double figures, which is absolutely great because, the last sort of double figures midfielder I think we had was either the really Scatchell or Hartley. So it'd be nice to have that under his belt as well. So
yeah, no, definitely. I think he's more likely to get chances like that playing at left wing back, though, to be honest. I think in a midfield too, I'm not sure he'd kick on enough to get into positions to score. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'd happily be proven wrong. If Andy Halliday somehow manages to hit double figures in goals this season, then I'd be delighted. But I think he's got more chance of doing that playing at left back in the 3-4-3 because obviously how far forward they get. We saw it from Michael Smith throughout the game as well. He was bombing down the right wing and getting involved. Which
he may as well be like a striker, mate. Honestly, the amount of times I saw him right up that the right flank. Honestly, it's just like, where are you? It's fucking. He loves a bomb down there. Loves a bomb.
Oh, absolutely. Then obviously after the goal, St Mirren, after half an hour, St Mirren had a chance and they hit the crossbar from a header. I think there was a foul in the build up to it, so it wouldn't have counted anyway if it went in. But that was a warning for me, because they'd started to kind of, from that point on, they'd started to grow into it a bit and get more of the ball themselves. And the boy McGrath, I think it's Jamie McGrath or James McGrath, I can't remember his first name, but
don't know,
plays in
don't
the
care, but it's fine.
Yeah, no, neither do I. But he plays in the midfield for St Mirren, and he did all right. He did all right for them. Everything good was going through him. And yeah, I'm not saying we struggled to deal with him, but he was really growing into the game, and that made a difference for St Mirren. They played higher up, sort of kind of similar to how we kind of countered against Celtic last week, to be honest. But yeah, not really anything else happened in the first half. Was pretty comfortable first half for Hearts, I would say.
Aye,
Do you agree?
Aye, like I said, like it was almost a lot of the same sort of things as we saw against Celtic last week, because you've said it yourself, last week as well, and I'm pretty sure that was actually Halliday that said it on his the podcast as well. When you go 1-0 up relatively early, you almost have that sort of the mental mindset where, right, so do we sort of kick on and try and get more, or do we kind of step back and blah, 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 blah. So, and I felt we did I think we kind of did relatively sit back throughout the second half, but in a more sort of comfortable way. I think because St Mirren did slowly start to grow into the game, but I don't think they were a real threat as such throughout that second half, mate.
No, and I mean, I agree with you, to be honest. I will say that St Mirren, their wing backs were effective. It was Tanser and Tate, I think was the other one, or Tansy and Tate, I can't remember, but again, don't really care. But they were very effective against our wide players in Gino and Gary Mackay-Steven. Probably Gino, and to be fair to Gino, after the game, he posted on social media saying, "Bad game from me, but 3 points is what matters." And Gary Mackay-Steven didn't have his best game either, but to be fair, St Mirren were kicking him all over the park. But those two are massively effective to how we want to play. So St Mirren's wing backs did well, and they just cut the space off for them. And Ginnelly couldn't get into the game as much as he wanted to, and Gary Mackay-Steven kept cutting inside and being met by more St Mirren defenders in front of him. So I think, as bad as Gino and GMS were, it was because of the St Mirren system. It wasn't individually bad performances.
No.
But yeah, I mean, the second half was pretty similar to the first, to be honest. St Mirren came out, put a bit of press on us, and you could tell that we were maybe a bit uneasy. I don't know why. It's only St Mirren, but maybe the thought that they haven't won there since 2010 in the league, before that, was maybe playing on their minds, and that's understandable. St Mirren, as much as we joke about it, it's not an easy place to go. They don't make it easy for you, and we did well on that front. We sat in, and I would have loved to have seen us go and score 2, 3, 4, but against a side like that at home, that's not going to happen. St Mirren are not going to do that. They're not going to open up and let us do that. Maybe at Tynecastle, but that's a different story. But what did you make of the second half?
It was relatively more with St Mirren, even though, like I said, we were relatively sort of competent throughout the second half. I thought they had a bit more of the of the ball. I thought they had a bit more sort of the build up, sort of to play for their chances. But like you said yourself, I would love to go everywhere and try and sort of to bang in 2, 3, 4 goals sort of everywhere we went it. But we're sitting here sort of the ones again just from last week as well, and we didn't play amazing for it last week, and also from yesterday as well, we didn't play amazing as well. But it's the difference from last sort of season as well, was that even though we're not playing amazing, we're still grinding out those results. And I like, mate, like you've said it many a time, I'll take like sort of the plain shite, but still getting the actual result rather than us playing beautiful fantasy football and still not getting the much from the actual game itself. I'll take that any day of the week.
Of course.
So, I mean, going into, I mean, I've got to give this man the credit because I've not actually done it that much since we started the podcast, mate. But what a finish! Such composure from Liam Boyce, honestly, because like when he got the ball through to him on the edge of the 18-yard box, I can't even mind who it was. It might have been Smith, like I can't mind, but
Gary Mackay-Steven.
It was Gary Mackay-Steven.
Yeah, fed it to him. Yeah,
right, and it was the sort of like the beautiful wee sort of and then and just with such like hand on heart, I thought it was gonna go like out of fucking the stadium, but it was such a calmness to it, and it just he knew exactly where he wanted to put it and just struck it, and it was a beautiful wee goal.
Oh, absolutely. I think just prior to that, I have to say I gave him massive credit last week, and I'll give him massive credit again.
Yeah.
100%. Robbie Nelson for me. I know you're expecting me to say Liam Boyce, but
I was actually, but
Robbie Nelson's the man I'm going to give the credit to, because
again,
he brought on Nandule with half an hour to go, changed the system, played Nandule up front, and Boyce as that sort of number 10 kind of floating around him. And as we always say about Nandule, he's not a fantastic footballer, but he's a big unit, and defenders don't like that. But defenders, that's what I'm saying, and defenders don't like that because it gives them something else to think about. So when you've got Liam Boyce as well on the park, if I'm a St Mirren defender, I'm thinking, who am I supposed to go with here? Do I match up to Nandule or do I chase Boyce? What do you do?
Well, yeah, because literally on the build-up play, I'm pretty sure it got passed to Nan, and he sort of he started to hold it up, going backwards and backwards, and I'm pretty sure he got about 10 yards until they actually fell down. So you know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's the thing. He was sitting on the floor, and he played the pass out to, it was either Benny or I think it was Benny, and then he passed it to Mackay-Steven, and then it went to Boyce. But what I'll say about Nandule, and that this is me talking about a player that I actually like, Nandule. A lot of Hearts fans don't really tend to like him because he's not banging in 10, 15 goals a season. But what he gives you, it's not even assists, it's the pass before an assist. He's always involved. And it was a point in the game where what we were doing wasn't working. St Mirren were coming into the game. We were trying to get out, but we didn't have the pace to get out. And Gary Mackay-Steven was just getting lumped all over the place. And I think he got injured, but seems to be fine, thankfully. Ginelli wasn't having his most effective game either. So we didn't really have an out ball. So he brings on Nandule and says, right, you just go and stand up there and we'll just ping it at you. And that's what Nandule gives you. He's a very, very odd forward, I have to be honest. He is very odd, but in the nicest possible way, because he's not going to get double figures for goals this season, but it wouldn't surprise me if in terms of assists and contributions, he'll hit double figures because he's always involved and he's a nuisance. And I think, just to touch back on Robbie Nelson, I think that he did it against Celtic, brought Haring on, changed the system. We controlled the midfield after that. Then against St Mirren, he brings Nandule on, and the game swung back in our favour again, which gives Boyce the goal. And that's substitutions that have been brought on and changed the game. So for me, and I said this on Twitter earlier, I think what Robbie needs is better options off the bench, which is why I think our recruitment needs to be right. Because as much as I like Ewen Henderson, and you and I spoke about him a few podcasts ago, is he a Liam Boyce replacement? No, because he's not good enough for that yet.
No, he's not. I feel as if he'd be more suitable. I mean, again, I'm not saying that like, he's as good as either sort of Gary Mackay-Stevens or Gino, but I feel as if one of those, knock on wood, if they were to get injured, I feel that he would be a more suitable replacement for the one of them, because
Yeah.
like he's still got a lot to learn, but he can to put in like a good shift as well. So I would feel more relatively comfortable if he were to slide in to that right or the left side as an out and out striker. Like you'd feel like a bit like it's not probably going to happen. One player I do want to actually talk about. I don't know if you'll feel the same way about it, because obviously, like, we touched on how we feel that the midfield, essentially, with the pretty much in the coming out of Tammy Devlin as well. I think you could probably say that centre mid is probably quite settled, and it's a good sort of rotate as well, and for the whole team, because I think with the 3-4-3, it's kind of, it can be a very experimental sort of like, changeable sort of setup as well. But back to my point, I was going to ask, what did you think of Haring? Now, do not get me wrong. I think the world of him. I think he's a really, really, really good player to actually have. I think the only criticism I would have of Haring, before he got fucking lumped, which we'll talk about in a wee bit, I still feel as if his lack of mobility, in the sense, I'm not saying that he can't run, because even for his size, like he can run, but there was a moment, I think it was still in the first half, where he got dragged out to the far right, and then one of the Mirren sort of players kind of dummied him.
Yeah,
twice.
I remember.
He sort of ran on, and that amount of time for him to turn and try and get to the ball, like was gone. Do you think that? I mean, to kind of sort of counter my point, I think every single central mid that we have contributes something differently, I think, but I think that's the only sort of criticism I would have when it comes to Haring sort of to playing. I don't think he has that sort of urgency in terms of those sort of situations as such. Would that be a bit harsh, or?
I think you're probably right, to be honest. Now, I'm going to right or wrong here, because we're talking about
please do. Yeah.
Peter Haring. Now, last week, I listened back to our last podcast after it was released, and I went on a bit of a rabbit hole rant, and I accused Peter Haring of not being a technically good football player. And
are we going to get into this conversation after we spent 2 hours literally talking about what defines a technical football player?
Just a brief one. So as I say, I went down a rabbit hole and said that Peter Haring was not a technically good football player. And if you're listening to this right now and you
you know who you are, yeah.
You know exactly who you are. So call this a public apology for what was complete and utter nonsense. Because
are you apologizing?
Listen, right? Listen, I absolutely adore Peter Haring, genuinely, and to the point where when that St Mirren boy lumped him, I wanted to go through the screen and batter the guy myself. But look, Peter Haring does have his limitations, and you're right in that mobility is one of them. So I don't think you're far off the mark with that, to be honest. But like I said, what Peter Haring gives you is composure, and that calmness in the midfield, because he's just so assured on the ball, and he plays the safe game, and I like that. But yes, I wholeheartedly take back my incorrect opinion of Peter Haring that was expressed last week. He is a technically good football player at what he does. But saying that, would I have him starting? It'll depend on what this Cameron Devlin boy comes in and looks like. Benny has done very well since he's been in the team. Wasn't as good against St Mirren, had a quieter game. than he did against Celtic, but I think that's understandable. But yes, yeah, I think I love Peter Haring, and for me, there's a possibility, and I'm sure listeners will have their opinions. Peter Haring could quite easily play centre back, quite easily.
Yeah.
And that could be something to look at some point. But this is the last year of his contract. We've got a few players that are in the last year of their contracts.
Long list of players. Long list.
Oh, we could make a whole podcast about that. To be honest, I didn't put it in the news, but it's I love Peter Haring, and he was very, very good in the game against St Mirren. He did get caught out a few times. He did get turned. I know the point that you're referring to. So those are things that are a worry. But the good thing about the 3-4-3 system is there's always someone behind them to mop it up and back them up, which is good.
No, mate. I mean, before we do move on to the end of the game, I'm only going to take 60 seconds for this, all right? And I'll refer to myself from last week's the podcast as well. Once again, you know who you are. And the most respect. No, because we're all Hearts fans here. We all talk about the same thing. Everybody has different opinions, but that's what makes it interesting.
Of course.
From last week's episode, when I was using the example to back up for some of the flack that Andy Halliday has taken, where he's not the best all-round player, which me at the being his number one fan, I can admit to that, obviously, right? But there's certain things that you're right there, man.
I'm all right. I'm just drowning over here, but you're fine. Carry on.
But there are, like you just mentioned there, about Haring as well. There are certain things that he can contribute, which outweigh the stuff that he can't do that well. And I give the same for Andy Halliday as well. When I used the example of Roy Keane now, I mean, we can maybe put this up onto Twitter as a whole other sort of thing as well. But when I said that Roy Keane was technically not a good football player, I meant it in the sense that, and I will find this link, right? Because he said it himself, that he was a very, very average football player, but he did the simple things excellent. Probably the best in the world at that point for what he did for that role. He said it himself. Now, whether that makes me a bad person for saying that he wasn't a good player, that's not what I said. But no, in that sort of the context, so that there's, like you said yourself as well, whatever this guy was Cammy Devlin sort of brings to the table, again, for that sort of the players that we've got for that central mid role, there's not one player out of them that has got the all round sort of the package. I mean, so far, was it the game has not put much wrong, but again, we've only saw him 2 times, so we don't know if he's an all-round player on a consistent basis. So
exactly,
yes. So just to clear that up, that's I under no circumstances said that Roy Keane was a shite player. I think the man was the best at what he did in that role. So for whoever you are, you know who I'm talking about. Just to clear that up, son. I still love you, so it's all good. But yeah, back to the game. Obviously got to the 85th the minute when things started to get a tiny bit nervy. Obviously, St Mirren got to go back. I'll be honest, Alan, I zoned out of that goal. All that I remember is that I think it was from a set piece, or it was a header. As well.
It was. Just before that, though, we had Aaron Mecaniff hitting an absolute rasper of a shot from 30 yards off the post.
I saw that as well. Like the bend that took, that was
do you know,
pretty crazy bend.
Yeah, I've been a fan of Aaron Mecaniff. Not so far this season, he's not done enough, but when I saw him line up for that shot, I was willing for it to go in. I was like, he needs to put this in. He needs to get a goal like that to get back on side and, back in the manager's favour sort of thing. But yeah, what a hit. And he was unlucky not to see it go in. But
definitely.
Anyway, yeah, on the goal, moving on to that, it came from a corner that Craig Gordon punched out. And he got some distance on the punch, by the way. But then
Boy knows how to punch.
He does. Knows how to catch as well, thankfully. It's more than some of the goalkeepers we've had in the past know how to do. But
once again, that would be a whole other podcast. But please, to continue, mate.
But so the St Mirren boy picks the ball up, and Boyce goes out to meet him and tries to block the cross. Gets done with a little dummy, a little round the corner pass. Now, on Sports Scene, I don't know if you watched it, the highlights were on Shelley Kerr, who's the obviously ex-Scotland women's national manager. She was very critical of Liam Boyce and said he should be blocking the cross. Now, I watched that. Liam Boyce was everywhere in that game. He was everywhere. His job is not to defend crosses. His job is not to do that. He went out there and put himself in front of it. And St Mirren, I think it was 2 St Mirren players, and between them, they just sort of worked it around him. Liam Boyce is not at fault for that cross getting into the box.
No.
One person who is at fault, though, is Nandule, because the ball comes in, and Nandule was marking Shaughnessy, who was the eventual goal scorer, for the corner just before it. So Nandule, the ball gets cleared by Gordon. Nandule's obviously switched off at this point, thinking, that's away, we've defended it, it's over. Shaughnessy's still in there, because at that point, Shaughnessy, who's a centre-back, was playing up front for St Mirren, because that's how desperate they were to try and get a goal. Then the ball comes in. Nandule is 2 or 3 yards away from Shaughnessy. Halkett is standing 2 or 3 yards away from Shaughnessy. But Halkett can't go for him because Halkett's got a St Mirren boy behind him as well. So if Halkett goes to Shaughnessy, he loses his man. So Nandule completely switched off, left the St Mirren boy on his own, 5 yards from goal, and he just smashes it past Gordon with his head, and Gordon's fuming. He picks the ball out his net and he punches it away. Yeah, he's absolutely fuming. And it's such a simple thing to avoid, We defended the corner well because Gordon comes out and punches it, but the danger's not away. That second phase was massive, and that's what St Mirren got the goal from. So, yeah, I blame Nandule because he switched off, but equally, he's a forward. So, yes, he's 6 foot whatever, but, defending's not his game, let's be honest. But it was still very poor from him to let the St Mirren boy just be completely on his own.
I know, mate, exactly. But what can you do? I think I was actually just more interested about what happened afterwards. Now, no words. When you score a goal 5 minutes before the end, obviously plus whatever time there was at the end as well, and you're right back in the game.
Mm-hmm.
What forces you to, I mean, I didn't know this, but what forces you to go up to a random player, like it looked random as fuck, then to go and start the game and just go up to Peter Haring with that beautiful face of his and just plonk him right with the elbow? I don't know if it was a case of, fucking yes, it scored a goal, get it up here. No, it was just, I wasn't even angry. It was just so random. It took a shot to I think it was Halkett, and he's just standing there what the fuck is just happened here? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was weird. I watched the game, and Laurie and Robert Borthwick, who were doing the commentary, which was actually very good, by the way, shout outs to them. They missed it because they were obviously sitting in a studio not watching it live, because they were watching the same stream as everybody else. So the cameras completely missed it. Nobody knew what had happened. But yeah, I mean, I originally thought it's quite a soft one, to be honest. I didn't, from the angle that they showed to begin with, you didn't really see the elbow. But then they played it again, and he just, it's almost like we kicked off, we had the ball, and this St Mirren boys just thought, I'm going to go and get the ball. I'm going to get a goal. I'm going to go and I'm chasing this ball. Peter Haring sort of turns himself around to shield the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, the ball's gone from Peter Haring by the time the St Mirren player is next to Peter Haring. So I'm thinking, what are you doing? Like, the ball's not there. It's gone. Go and chase after whoever's got it now. If you're that desperate to get it back, go and win it back from somebody else. But he just lumps him. And I'm just like,
random as fuck.
yeah, it's like, what are you doing? Like I said earlier, I wanted to go through my screen and punch the boy myself. I thought, what's this boy all about? But then he knew, as soon as the referee blew his whistle, he knew because he was walking off the pitch before the ref even had his cards out, which I thought was quite funny as well. He's obviously thought, oh shit, I'll just start walking.
I know. I mean, what I found, like, just a separate note, what I found hilarious about it, because most of the stadium knew that it was a red card as well, as did, like, most of the players as well. And literally, because he only had about 1,000 folk in, and you could hear all the fans like relatively well, and no word of a lie. I heard the only fan for St Mirren that had a tiny bit of hope. Literally, I just heard, "Oh, come on, the buddies! You're my buddies! We're all buddies! We can do it, buddies!" I'm like, what kind of fucking monstrosity team and what kind of monstrosity zombie fans have you got in that fucking stadium? Yeah, I can't.
Mate, honestly, they're a disturbing bunch. They really are a disturbing bunch.
They really are, mate. But yeah, after that, like, random event, we went on to see the game, and again, mate, it wasn't the best the performance, but again, if we're gonna grind out those results, like away from home, especially, because I think that is an area that we have to sort of improve on, because for the last 2 years our away at the record has been dismal. So
yeah, definitely.
all in all, it is a good start to hope for, man.
Yeah, I mean, considering the last time we were in the Premier League, we only managed 4 wins all season. We've got 2 already in the first 2 games. So
there you go.
So far so good.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And like we said, that kind of wraps up the review of the game at Love Street. But again, whatever it's fucking called, and it was sorry, what?
No, I was just going to say, I don't even think St Mirren fans know what it's called anymore, to be honest.
Fucking a monstrosity of Scottish football, mate. So as we said at the start, it ended a 2-1 victory to Hearts, which puts us unfortunately joint top of the league, unfortunately, on the goal difference, because Ross County couldn't even put in a shift out against the filth. So, but hey ho, we're still top, so all is good. We'll just have a wee quick sort of look forward to next week's game, where we are travelling to Parkhead to play Celtic once more, twice in 3 weeks. You know, Alan, like, if the results didn't go our way throughout this last 2 weeks, I'd probably be a bit more sort of more critical of Robbie to try and get a result at Parkhead. But obviously, because we've got these 2 results in the end of the bag, and obviously the league is the most in that important thing, I won't be that arsed if we do go out, because, like, again, the league is the most important thing. Fair enough. I know that when they did the interview with the This Is My Story podcast, obviously one of Joe's sort of aims was to do better in in the cups, but you can't do, like, I don't think Hearts fans can be very sort of critical and starting to sort of throw their toys out the pram, if we don't get a result there, I mean, especially, again, it's granted, I want us to do the better as well in the cup as well, but on the back of 2 the good wins, I won't be that arsed, if we go out.
No. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those. We played, obviously, Celtic in the league first game of the season, and there was an expectation about Hearts going into that game, because it was like, look, this is a new Celtic team. We're on a high. We're looking good. We've just had 4 games in the Betfred, or I keep calling it Betfred. I'm never going to get over that. Premier Sports Cup.
Long away from it.
Premier Sports Cup. We've won 4 games in a row. The team's clicking, looking good. Celtic are average at this point because Postecoglou's not got the players he wants. They're not playing the right way. So the league fixture was different. I could understand the confidence from Hearts fans because it was warranted, and obviously so it proved to be, and we won that game. The League Cup, like you say, I'm very much on the same page as yourself, and I think a majority of Hearts fans are feeling exactly the same way. Robbie Nelson has almost earned himself a free hit at this game.
Yeah.
Because of what has come before it. If, like you said, if we hadn't won the first 2 games, say we lost to Celtic and drew against St Mirren, people would be looking at this game against Celtic going, he's got to get a result. He's got to get a result or he's in danger.
Mm-hmm.
And that not being the case is obviously very good news for Robbie. We went out of the Betfred Cup. I'm calling it Betfred. Fuck Premier Sports. I'm calling it Betfred.
Just call it Betfred.
we went out of that cup last year, but there's no. It sounds defeatist to say it already, but there's no shame in going out to Celtic. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
If we do, and I mean, going to Parkhead, there was actually, while I'm on that, I'm going to just look something up that I was sent earlier, which was from Amoruso Lets It Run. And he pointed out, so this was his tweet, right?
Go on.
Just to help out for next Sunday, our last win at Parkhead was in 2009 and last league win was 2007. Last 2 wins there were both in the League Cup. Since that win, we have a record of 1 draw under Robbie Nelson, 18 defeats, and 6 goals scored with 56 goals conceded.
What a record.
Right? So essentially what you take away from that is we haven't won at Parkhead since 2009 and 2007 in the league. So there is absolutely no pressure on Hearts going into that game, and I am absolutely delighted about that.
Aye, no, mate. Like, exactly. I mean, in that same note as well, like, I think because there won't be as much pressure on Robbie and the squad itself, I don't think that's not a reason still not to have a go. Like, you know what I mean? Because if we set up the same, like, look, we've not got anything to actually lose. So in that same vein, like, if we have a go and we don't win, okay, sound, okay, bye-bye. But if we do actually, like, have a go, because I genuinely think, I don't think Celtic will be expecting us to have a go. Like, you know what I mean? Because like they'll be probably, no, we'll sort of have to think about it. Obviously, like, they just played Dundee and they won 6-0. So and I can promise you, every Celtic fan will be saying, yeah, Celtic are back, the boys are back, here we go, 10 in a row on the journey. Fuck off, aye. But like, they'll be thriving on very false confidence, I think. And and if we do actually have a go, I don't think they'll be expecting that. I genuinely don't. So I don't think there's any reason not to have a go. And mate, even if we were to get hammered, like, 4-5, I genuinely won't care again. And we said it at the start of a few episodes back. I'll never be angry, and I will never sort of begrudge Robbie if we do lose a game. As long as we've had like a go, I'll be absolutely fine with that.
Yeah, I echo that. I want to see us go and just have a go at them. And like I said, it's a free hit, so there's no reason why we can't go and have a go at it. Obviously, we've got momentum, 2 wins out of 2. We haven't been fantastic in either of those 2 games, let's be honest. But yeah, it's the League Cup. It's a free hit. And put it this way, at least it's not Alloa or Brora Rangers if we do end up going out.
Exactly, man, exactly. Well, on that note, we shall carry on our was it the predictions league. Just to point out, I am on 3 points to 1.
I'm on the board. I'm on the board.
Just for anybody that didn't hear that, I'll come closer to the mic as well. I am up 3 points, and Alan with only 1 point.
I'm on the board. I'm on the board. The comeback's on. I'm on the board, lads. It's fine.
come back there, mate. So yeah. We can do the prediction for that and for yourself to get back on the board as such. So what do you think, Alan? We would like a prediction and also any goal scorers as such, if you want us to actually win. So,
well, I am going to go for Celtic to win 3-1. And goal scorer, I'm going to go for... who am I going to go for goal scorer? I'm just going to be really, really boring and say Liam Boyce again.
Oh, do I have to get out my catchphrase for that one every time you say Boyce?
Go for it.
Anyway, mainstream as fuck. Honestly, mate, like so. Was it to be a bit? Was it different? Get fucking cheesy to score the first fucking goal. You know what I mean?
Nah, Boyce's the man.
Fair dues. No. I mean, it's a very what's the word? It's a very accurate probably outcome, but what? Just to be that guy, I'm gonna actually, because like you know me, I always see the glasses half full. So I'm gonna go for I can't believe I'm saying this because it sounds ridiculous. I'm gonna go for a 1-0 Hearts win. I'm also gonna go for even though like I slaughter you every fucking week for saying it, I'm gonna go for the Boyce goal.
Was that mainstream? Was that mainstream?
I said I'm gonna go for a Boyce goal. But I'm also gonna go for a red card for Andy Halliday as well, because if that boy is on, mate, there'll be tackles flying left, right, and centre. So I'm gonna go for the Hearts 1-0. And I'm gonna have Andy Halliday as a red card as well. I mean, that doesn't exactly contribute to the point tally, but I just thought I would throw that out there.
You don't need extra points. You're still winning, you know. Like you don't need to find extra points anywhere.
Well, mate, like genuinely, if this comes out actually as right, mate, I've got to get on to the betting apps, right? I've said to you that I absolutely despise the betting apps and what they stand for, but I've got to have some sort of was it Ed the powers, because every time I've told you before we started this league, what the scores I may think they maybe they came up, and then you've won what about £30 so far?
Yeah,
from my advice.
To be fair, the game against St Mirren, I also predicted a win for Hearts, so you can take some of the credit, but not all of it.
All of them.
But yeah, that was another winning bet that came through. So I might just nip on and check what a Hearts 1-0 win might be.
Please do, man. Please do. So yeah, you've got Alan as a 3-1 victory to Celtic with Ed the Boyce to score a goal, and then you've got me being the truly optimistic as fuck Hearts fan with a 1-0 win at Parkhead with Ed the Boyce to score first and a classic Andy Halliday red card, which he's not actually had a red card yet ever since he's been at Hearts, eh?
Not for a while anyway. If he has, it's not been recently anyway.
Nah.
It's time to change that.
My boy Andy, do us proud, mate. Do us proud. So yeah, that kind of wrap things up for this week's episode from the Since I Was Young podcast. So as always, we are the Since I Was Young podcast, a Heart of Midlothian podcast for all chats, news and debates between myself and Alan. But as always, if you have enjoyed this episode, please think about subscribing and smash that like button, guys. But yeah, as always, we do really appreciate, but on a very serious note, we do really appreciate all the new subs and all the likes as well, because it shows that some of you guys do enjoy the content that we had to put out, and all the the pish that we do regularly talk about, mainly from me, but hey ho. that's life anyway. But yeah, as always, guys, thank you very much for watching. And Alan, as always, thank you very much for joining me on this fine evening.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll echo your sentiments and thank the general podcasting community, the Heart of Midlothian podcasting community, for sharing our recent absolute nonsense that has somehow managed to see us almost at 100 subscribers, which, yeah, to some of you it seems like absolutely nothing, but to us, trust me, this is a big thing for a podcast that started because we couldn't meet to talk about football anymore. It's a great. I think it was another podcast. One of the members mentioned it's almost like a therapy for us, and
Absolutely,
it's true.
man.
It's
Definitely,
true.
man.
So
Definitely,
yeah,
man.
just I'll echo that and say thank you very much to anyone that's listened, subscribed, commented, all of that stuff, interacted on the Facebook, Twitter. It's been amazing, to be honest with you. And yeah, long may it continue for the foreseeable future. Eh?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. But yes, as always, guys, thank you very much for watching. We have been Since I Was Young podcast, and we will see you in the next one. You take care. Bye for now.